This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Welcome, everybody. Episode 180, now available on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my cousin, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz?
What's up, buddy? So we've got a jam-packed show today, so I'm not going to waste any time telling you what I got going on in my life because I got nothing good going on right now. This show is so cram-packed. It's basically your underpants when the Victoria's Secret magazine comes in because it's bursting at the seams. We're going to have Ken Cal on to talk some Red Wings. They look rejuvenated. We're going to wrap up the show with a little Dachshund session where we get to pick your brain, see what you're thinking about, and just kind of what the hamster's doing on the wheel inside your head. But I wanted to start this show off talking some Lions. And what I wanted to do here was, now we've got this boiled down to the top 4 teams in the NFL. And for a brief moment, the Lions were kind of in that conversation with some of the top teams in the NFL as they just recently lost their playoff game. That being said, I wanted to compare the Lions, what they've got going on, to what the other 4 teams who are now playing to go to the Super Bowl. And this everything kind of begins and ends with the quarterback. So I figured we could start with Matt Stafford, and we can kind of work our way through position groups because I've got a ton of information here by people who are much, much smarter than I, as well as a lot of stats to kind of back up different points that we're going to kind of go back and forth on. So I wanted to start with quarterback. Now, there's no doubt about it. Tom Brady's probably, if not the best quarterback to ever strap on the pads and sit there, go out there and throw a football. I think we can both agree on that. He's probably the be-all, end-all with the 4 quarterbacks that are playing to go to the Super Bowl right now. That being said, I think arguably Ben Roethlisberger's a top 3 quarterback. I think you can argue that Aaron Rodgers might be one of the most prolific quarterbacks in the NFL, especially right now. He does amazing things, especially when plays break down. He seems to thrive, and he's able to get the most out of the least. It's amazing. So I think right there, you've got 3 elite quarterbacks, 3 guys who you can argue are in the top 5, if not the top 3 of the NFL. Then you've got a guy like Matt Ryan. And Matt Ryan's made a lot of strides this season. He just cashed a huge check and became a highly paid quarterback. And finally, you're starting to see it pay a little bit of dividends for the Atlanta Falcons. I think you can argue that Matt Stafford is a top 10, probably a top 7 quarterback in the league. That being said, I think when you compare him to these other 4 teams, he's not necessarily an issue for this team going forward. I'm not sure if you agree or disagree on that, but I see Matt Stafford having the talent to be able to carry this team and do things with this team. And if you were to maybe sit there and think about it like, hey, let's scratch this and let's start all over. Let's blow it up. Let's get a new quarterback in here. There's no guarantee that you're able to find a franchise quarterback. And Matt Stafford is a franchise quarterback. I don't care what you say. He is a franchise quarterback. He might not be the greatest quarterback out there, but I think he's highly competitive, and I think he deserves this payday that's coming up. And I think if you are the Lions, you're stupid to not pay him because good luck going out there and trying to find somebody better. They just, like, franchise quarterbacks just don't fall off trees. It just doesn't happen.
See, where I'm at is, and year in, year out, we do this. The Lions get eliminated or the Lions don't qualify for the playoffs, and then we're forced to say, okay, how do the Lions compare to the other teams? And so I've heard a lot of discussion. Some people have said, hey, the Lions should just build to defend Aaron Rodgers and to try to do their best to just win the division. I'm always of the opinion that how far are the Lions from competing? So each and every year when you get a chance to watch good football, and I hope everybody takes advantage of that and they got a chance to watch the Green Bay-Dallas game and what 2 high-level clubs can do when they're playing on all cylinders and they're playing well. So now we're at the point where Bob Quinn kind of surveyed the landscape. He saw year 1. And his job was to see, okay, what's the culture of this team? How does Jim Caldwell, motivate these guys? How can these guys perform in key situations? And my first thinking is, who are we going to subtract from this team in order to get better? A lot of talk is about moving on from Riley Reif, which I think would be a good decision. I hope, and you said it last week, and I kind of didn't get a chance to rebut, but Eric Ebron has an option. There's an opportunity for the Lions to cut ties with Eric Ebron. I hope they do that. You make those moves, and I think you're better right there to start. Now you talk about Matthew Stafford and where he ranks. And the word that I would describe in terms of how I felt watching was jealous. Each and every time you watch good football, you go, wow. And I know you can preface it by saying there's not too many quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers out there. There's not too many quarterbacks like Tom Brady out there. But why not the Lions? Why couldn't Matthew Stafford be like that? And I understand, and I guess as time will pass, my thinking will calm down, my emotions will settle, and I'll say, okay, they're going to try to build more around Matthew Stafford. That is what it is. The story is not what John wants. The story is not, hey, why isn't Matthew Stafford Aaron Rodgers? Because he's not. We all can say it. It's a statement of fact. There's no going further beyond that. So the next logical step would be, can you surround Matthew Stafford with enough pieces to at least get into the postseason and earn some victories? And I think that is the case with Matthew Stafford. Is he worth, $25 to $27 million? No. Is he going to get it? Yes. So knowing that the Lions are going to be married to Matthew Stafford for the next 10 years, you got to say to yourself, how do we surround this guy with enough talent to at least start his career now in the postseason? And that goes with improving 2 units. The running back unit and the offensive line. You improve those, get 1 or 2 more players at each position. I know you could go with Theo Riddick and Amir Abdullah, but Bob Quinn said it. You can always upgrade those positions. You get a stud running back, you get a couple more linemen that can help you. This team should be able to do more things offensively and should be able to compete. And many people have noticed that, Matt Ryan's 1 year older than Matthew Stafford. So in the 2017 season, if Stafford can do anything anywhere near what Matt Ryan did, we should be talking about a Lions team inching near the postseason.
And I'm glad you brought up those 2 units specifically, because I think they're both tied to each other. On top of that, they're tied to what the quarterback does for a team. Now let's look at this. According to Pro Football Focus, the Detroit Lions have the 19th ranked offensive line. That being said, I think we both agree they need to address right tackle. You said let Riley Reif go. I think they also have to address the left guard position because that was a revolving door. If Graham Glasgow is going to come in and he's going to solidify that position, that's great. That if not, you've got to do something to plug that hole. Now, drawing a correlation to the other 4 teams that are in the playoffs right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers, according to Pro Football Focus, have the number 3 ranked offensive line as well as the number 1 ranked running back. The Atlanta Falcons have the number 8 running back, and they have the number 6 offensive line. Are you seeing the correlation here? Now, the Green Bay Packers are a total outlier, all right, because they've got no running game whatsoever. They've had to have a wide receiver step in and moonlight as a running back with Ty Montgomery, and he's done an admirable job. That being said, though, they still have the 5th best offensive line in all of football. And now the New England Patriots have the 10th best offensive line, and they've got the number 18th best running back core. The Lions have the 26th best running back core, and they need to find somebody who can run between the tackles. And they need to address the right tackle position as well as the left guard position because Matt Stafford was just getting pounded on from both those spots. Guys were just running up the gut on him and sitting there either hurrying him, hitting him, or even worse, sacking him and forcing fumbles. So you've got to address the offensive line as well as the running game.
By all accounts, what people are looking at is that in the first round, there's a lot of strong defensive talent, and there is a need for the Lions to improve on defense because their rankings on defense weren't that good either. They didn't have a lot of guys with a lot of sacks. They didn't pressure a lot of quarterbacks, and so we'll talk about that probably in future episodes as the mock drafts kind of evolve.
Oh, no.
Like
I want to get into this right now. I've got all kinds of stuff to show you. Here, let's do this real quick. All right, total defense, Detroit ranks number 30th. With total team tackles. And I'm throwing a bunch of numbers out at you, but it's just to prove the point at what they need to address.
Everything,
exactly. They need to add a defensive tackle as well as a defensive end. Now, look, the true testament to what makes a good defense is how many times you can take the ball away. And there's a ratio, giveaways to takeaways. Detroit ranks number 20th, and they're -1, which means they turned the ball over 1 more time than they took the ball away. Now, New England, if I was to go through and give you these stats that I have, New England doesn't rate great on anything. They're actually middle of the road on just about everything. But where they do sit there and succeed and elevate themselves is they don't turn the ball over and they force a ton of takeaways. They're number 3 in the NFL with a +12, while the Atlanta Falcons are number 4 with a +11. So again, ball security and sitting there being able to force fumbles, take interceptions away, and sit there and return these things to the house. The Green Bay Packers have 8 to the plus side to make them 6th in the league, while the Pittsburgh Steelers are tied for 9th with 5 on the positive side. So are you seeing a little bit here? You've got to be able to have a playmaker. You've got to be able to have somebody to be able to get to the quarterback, put the quarterback under some distress, and then come up with a big play in the back 4, whether it be your cornerback or it be a safety. Somebody doing something. That being said, the Lions didn't do a very good job getting at the quarterback at all this year. They ranked 11th. They're tied for 11th with 37 sacks. And a lot of that has to do with Ziggy Ansah dealing with an injury. You need to go out, you need to get a defensive end, somebody that you can pair with him, so if he does get a double team, if he does end up a little bit hampered, somebody who can get to the quarterback, hit the quarterback, force a fumble. You need playmakers on this defense. And basically, look, Terrell Austin did a great job piecemealing this whole thing together. He basically took duct tape, rubber bands, and he was like, you know what, watch me work a miracle. And that's what he did. He put a good enough defense out there, and they limited Matt Stafford so he wouldn't turn the ball over, and they were able to come out just under being positive, and they were able to get into the playoffs. And when they got into the playoffs, look, all their warts showed. You've seen the deal. They weren't very good at getting to Russell Wilson. They weren't very good down the field. And a lot of this just has to do more with depth and with the injuries that they were dealing with. Again, you had a linebacker who you paid a ton of money to, who played basically 4 games all season. And he was not super effective. He did seem to get better as the season wore on. But that being said, he didn't do enough. He needed to do more. You expected more. That's what you paid him for. So you need to address basically every level of the defense to help out that offense, because you've got nobody to sit there and put pressure on quarterbacks. You've got no big playmakers in the middle of that defense. And that being said, your secondary doesn't do a good enough job getting their hands on balls and intercepting balls and then possibly taking them back to the house. And that's a huge issue for this team.
So in the first round, are you thinking that they probably need to address the defense more? Because, listen, the offense has talent. It's yet to be decided whether Anquan Bolden's back. But with Golden Tate and Marvin Jones, you have them working of a team that can perform on offense. You definitely need to add maybe in the draft or free agency, maybe another veteran or someone that can stretch the field a little bit more as well. But I think by all accounts from what I'm reading, most people feel like it's going to be between 70 and 80% that they focus on the defense in the first round because there is a lot of impactful talent. And if Bob Quinn is worth anything and has metal, he can find talent on the offensive line running back in the late rounds, 3rd through 6th. So I'm of the opinion that, hey, start with the defense in the early rounds, bolster that unit up, and then you can makeshift the offense because there's a little bit more to work with on that side of the ball. But to the point regarding Green Bay being an outlier, and that's the source of my jealousy, and you tap right into it. The outlier is Aaron Rodgers. He is that great, and that's what I feel like most Lions fans feel. They don't feel like, because we haven't had too many general managers, that we feel like, hey, can you go out there in the 7th round and get a guy that can perform? You know, they want a miracle worker. Aaron Rodgers is a miracle worker, and that's what the Lions, I think, and what I would like is, hey, if the running backs aren't that great, if the wide receivers aren't that great, go out there, zing the ball around, do your thing, make a throw like Aaron Rodgers made late in the game, and do your thing. But Stafford has yet to show really too many late-game heroics in the biggest moments versus good teams. Yeah, you get behind versus the crumb bums of the league and you come back, their defenses aren't any good. And in the past, they haven't done it, but I'd like to see it versus Dallas. I'd like to see it versus Green Bay on a Sunday night game in front of the national audience to get us a home playoff game. I'd like to see some heroics, but in essence, I'm just wanting and hoping, and it's not going to happen. So we got to surround. We got to keep bringing more for Matthew Stafford, and that's just what it is. But for me, if it was my choice, I kind of would like to see, Matthew Stafford be heroic. But it's not the case, and it probably never will be the case. He's kind of being molded into an above-average game manager. He's not Aaron Rodgers, and I don't think the ceiling is for him to be Aaron Rodgers. I think the ceiling might be for him to now start looking at, how he compares to Joe Flacco.
Ooh, Joe Flacco. I don't know.
I got a ring.
He does have a ring, but I think Matt Stafford has more potential than Joe Flacco, more of a skill set than a guy like Joe Flacco. Here's the thing that you can say.
A better Joe Flacco,
an upgraded Joe Flacco. The 4 quarterbacks who are still playing for the Super Bowl, all of them are big game guys who can erase huge mistakes for a football team. That being said, I would probably lose my mind if the Lions go into this draft and they sit there and they draft somebody for the offense. The only way I can see it being okay, and that's if you go in and you draft an offensive lineman, somebody to solidify the right tackle position, or even the left guard position. You have to go out there and you have to address those because Lincoln Tomlinson's a total bust. an absolute bust, all right? You can go into the third round and you can get a running back. You can go into the fourth, fifth round, get a wide receiver. You can go grab those guys and they can be effective. Look at a guy like David Johnson for the Arizona Cardinals. He was a third-round pick, and he's one of the best running backs in all of the NFL right now. So you can go out and you can sit there and you can get those guys in later rounds. The only way I'm okay with them addressing that offensive line is if they go out. There's a guy like Donta Hightower who's going to be available. So there's a big upgrade for your linebacking core right there. If you can go out there and get him in free agency. You go out and you sign a guy like Eric Berry. He's a ball-hawking safety. He can sit there. He can come in. He gives leadership. He's a veteran guy. These are guys, if you can sign contracts that are palpable and that will help the organization in the long run, you just addressed two big spots on this team. You can now go out and address your offensive line with the first round of the draft. But otherwise, I want you drafting either a linebacker or I need you to draft the defensive end. I need somebody to get to the quarterback, and I need somebody to make big plays on this defense because they just don't have guys like that right now.
And before we wrap up, because we're going to have Ken Cal on the line here in about a few minutes, do you feel like the Lions are inching closer to being the top four in the league? They're far apart, or we're just wishful thinking and throwing things out there like we always do? Do you feel like Bob Quinn is going to make moves knowing that the head coach is Jim Caldwell, knowing that maybe they're willing to enter into his final year of a contract and calling him a lame duck? For me, it's just after, where I sit right now after this season, I just don't feel like they're close. I feel like right now, the next step up on the ladder rung is to just qualify for the postseason and see where you go from there. I just don't see like the upper echelon talent is getting better. These coaches aren't going anywhere, most likely, these four teams. And I know year to year it does change, but the cream rises to the top. And I just see the Lions right now, their next step is just to kind of qualify and find any avenue to win a postseason game. It just seems like a monumental goal, much more than really, I think it's just the Lions make it harder than it really needs to be.
I think this team smoked and mirrored it for the season. That's how they got into the playoffs. They have way too many holes that they have to address. Now, Bob Quinn did a great job this past offseason. I'm ready to give him another one. I want to see what he does during free agency. I also want to see what he does with another draft because he went out and he hit on a lot of guys during this draft. Look, most teams, including the Patriots, don't hit on every pick during the draft. But if you can hit on more than 50 to 60% of them at a time, you're going to put out a really, really good team. And he hit on at least 5 of 7 picks for this team that really paid dividends as the season progressed along. So I see him building upon that good momentum that he established last offseason, and I think he'll do it again. I think they take a little bit of a step back next season just because the schedule is super difficult. But I think Bob Quinn comes in and adds to this team and makes them a stronger team overall. You're just not going to see it on the win-loss record.
And in future episodes of the podcast, we definitely will be on top of the mock drafts, what's going on with the Lions, and things like that. Because right now it's raw. It's right after the season. We're all still watching great football, and we're trying to see how the Lions shake out and where they fit in. It's not real close, but hey, if Bob Quinn's going to be the man for the job, his job will be to make all this work, get the ingredients, and put it all together. And I'm hoping, just hoping, and my only request for this offseason is no extensions for Stafford, no extensions for Jim Caldwell. And maybe we'll talk about that after we talk to Ken Cal. Stay with us. We'll talk Red Wings next with the voice of the Detroit Red Wings, Ken Cal, up next. I want to tell you about our newest sponsor, Team Top Cat Sales. Are you looking for team apparel for your high school, your club sports team, or corporation? Look no further than Top Cat Sales, located on the east side of Main Street in downtown Royal Oak, between 11 and 12 Mile. Through founder and former University of Michigan QB John Wangler's leadership, Top Cat Sales has developed a tradition of selling and distributing custom Adidas team apparel with the highest quality and best service. Get your organization, school, or club team all in with Adidas today by going to TopCatTeamSales.com. That's TopCatTeamSales.com. Also, follow Top Cat on Twitter at Team Top Cat.
On the phone with us right now is your play-by-play voice of the Detroit Red Wings. You can hear him every single game on 97.1 The Ticket. Ken Cal, how you doing?
Doing good. Adam, John, how you guys doing today?
Excellent. Thanks for taking some time out of your busy schedule to talk some Red Wings with us. I guess let's just kind of jump right into it. Wings have been playing really well as of late. What have you seen that's been the major difference in this Wings team over the last 2 games opposed to the previous 5 of 6 games?
Well, I just think consistency has been a key. In the last 2 games against Pittsburgh and Montreal, guys, I thought the Red Wings played really good, consistent hockey, and it carried from one game to the next. And actually, it's the first time the Red Wings have won back-to-back games since the early part of December. So it's been a struggle for the Red Wings to put 2 really good, complete games back-to-back. With that said, I thought the Red Wings offense exploded against the Penguins in that 6-3 victory. Athanasiou had a highlight reel goal. That was one of the most beautiful goals I've ever seen in my life. And the next game against Montreal, I thought the Red Wings really grinded it out, especially in the third period. Got a nice goal from Vanek, who went to the front of the net, and it deflected off his body and found a way to keep Montreal off the board, and Jared Corral with the shutout. So overall, 2 good games against 2 top opponents in the NHL for Detroit.
Yeah, you spoke on Thomas Vanek, and his play of late has really allowed the Red Wings to do some things. There's been a little bit of talk and rumors saying that maybe the Wings should look at, moving on from Thomas Vanek to maybe add some pieces. I kind of disagree with that personally, knowing that what value are you going to get for a guy at this point in time, especially with what he contributes. What have you seen with him, and how do you address those that say potentially the Wings could upgrade by trading Vanek?
Well, I think right now it's too early to tell. The Red Wings still feel that they got a shot if they play better to qualify for the Stanley Cup playoffs. And, I know the window is closing a little bit on them. But again, I think that's the goal right now, is to continue to play well and continue in the second half of the season to get healthy and try to make a push to make the playoffs. So with that said, I think you just have to wait until the trade deadline comes up in March to see where the team is at. Vanek, to me, I think, has been terrific all season long. He's probably been the best player, the most valuable player on this Red Wing team. He's been very consistent. In fact, I think he's got points in 10 of his last 11 games. And when you think about it, the Red Wings have been offensively challenged for most of the year. He's been really the most consistent player offensively. So I'm sure that there are teams out there that would be interested in Vanek at the trade deadline. Depending on where the Red Wings are at. Now, he is an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season, so there's always that possibility that if a team wants him bad enough and gives you what you want, then he could always sign at the end of the season or beginning of next season and come back and play with Detroit. So, again, a lot of that's up in the air. I think it's too early to call just because of the fact that, the Red Wings are still pushing for a playoff run.
Earlier in the week, Ken Holland was on TSN Montreal 690, and he said a couple things talking about Andre Athanasiou's play and sometimes why he ends up getting benched and why he plays a lot of minutes. Now, what are your thoughts on him basically coming out and saying it has more to do with his lapses in the defensive end, even though he's highly skilled offensively? I think he's ranked 3rd in the NHL with goals and points per minute played. He really seems like he should be a guy who should be getting a little bit more ice time than what he's getting right now.
Well, first and foremost, I can't speak for the general manager, but I can tell you this, just from watching him play, there have been times this season where Athanasiou has been great offensively, but has lacked on the defensive side of the puck. And I think, that's been preached to him over the course of the year, that in order to play in the National Hockey League, you just can't be a one-way player. You've got to be able to generate offense, which he's very capable of doing. On the other hand, you've got to be responsible in the defensive zone and on the defensive side of the puck. So with that said, that's how you play in the National Hockey League. It's no different than any other player out there. And, when I look at Zetterberg and I look at Datsyuk, when Datsyuk was here in Detroit and Hank's still here with the team, the reason what makes them so successful is that they're very good offensive players, but they're very responsible defensive players too. And especially on this team where they're offensively challenged and it's hard to outscore your mistakes, you got to be good defensively. So I think the message has been sent to Andreas Athanasiou, and I know he's responded well. And with that said, he's playing better defensively, and he's putting up the points on the boards. I think he's got 4 goals in his last 6 games. He's picked up 3 assists as well. So as long as he continues to do that, he's going to get his ice time, and he's going to play it. But that's no different than any other player that's on the Red Wing team.
Now, Ken, as a follow-up, one of the most revered Red Wings, Steve Yzerman, obviously started off his career prolifically on offense, but once Scotty Bowman came and preached that Steve Yzerman needed to play solid defense, then you saw Stevie Y kind of emerge as a Hall of Famer. Now, do you believe that it takes a little bit of time to play well defensively as opposed to if you're naturally gifted on offense? What does it take to play well on the defensive side on the ice?
Well, it's a lot of hard work, and you got to be in the right position. And the thing is you see a lot of these guys that come into the National Hockey League, especially forwards, are prolific players in the juniors or as they grow up, and they focus on their offensive side of the puck because that's what's going to make them a player in the National Hockey League. The toughest thing is to learn how to play, without the puck and be a solid defensive player. But that's why you get your seasoning in the American Hockey League, to be an all-around player, and you're playing in all different types of situations. You can make your mistakes there and learn from those mistakes. The National Hockey League's a winning business. Once you get to this level, you've got to be ready to play, and you better have your game in line, because otherwise someone's going to take your job away from you. And so, with a lot of the young guys, especially if they've been goal scorers and younger in their early career, they've got to play well defensively. And I'll give you a good example. Anthony Mantha is another good example. He came up here last year. He was very good offensively, but wasn't very good defensively. So the Wings sent him down. The message was sent to him that he's got to be better on the defensive side of the puck. And certainly this year, if you look at his plus minus, he's been outstanding. And not only that, but he's taken a step to the next level where he's a good offensive player, but he's a good defensive player too. And the coach can trust him in different situations out there on the ice. He's not going to be a liability. So, every player needs that. Everybody, wants to be a goal scorer, but on the other hand, you got to be playing well defensively too.
Now, you've touched on quite a few of the young players that have been up here lately. Anthony Mantha, Andre Athanasiou, Jared Crow has stepped in and has played exceptionally well. We haven't even touched on the three young defensemen that are contributing to this team. Who do you feel has been the most impactful young player on this team, and why?
Well, I think on the blue line, you have to look at a guy like Xavier Ouellet. I think, he's spent his time in the minor leagues, and now he's up here and as I mentioned, he's a guy that's played in all different types of situations in Grand Rapids, and he's been awarded a lot more ice time just because of the fact that he's played really well, and he's been playing sometimes 22, 23 minutes a game, and that's just because he's been reliable out there. So I think out of the young defensemen, he's one that really stands out to me. I'm impressed with Nick Jensen, too. I mean, Jensen's one of those players that has been in the minor leagues. He's waiting for a chance, and certainly he's been making an opportunity, or he's been given an opportunity here, and he's made the most of it. So, he's another guy that can skate the puck out of the zone, and he's not a big guy, but he competes hard. So I would say those two players right there have really opened up my eyes.
So guys like Ouellet, Jensen, Sproul, those guys are all playing along the blue line, and they're contributing and doing a great job. Now, what happens when Kronwall and Smith get healthy and are able to come back to the team? You're not going to carry 9 defensemen.
Well, that's the million-dollar question, right? And, certainly, something has to be done because it's a numbers game, whether, players are waived or a trade needs to be made. But, again, we have to wait and see until, Kronwall comes back and Smith comes back to see what's going to happen. But you're right, it's a numbers game. Either you make a deal or, you put somebody on waivers and hope that nobody claims them.
All right, talking about trade deadlines and trades that could possibly be made. Now, with Jared Crow playing as well as he has been, and the trade deadline as well as the expansion draft coming up this summer, does that make a guy like Jimmy Howard or maybe even Peter Mrazek more expendable? And if so, which one of those guys would you be looking to possibly move? Now, Jimmy Howard's played exceptional when he was healthy, and Peter Mrazek has seemed to kind of struggle, but there's a little bit of an age gap there, and usually you go with the young player with the cheaper contract.
Well, first and foremost, I'm a radio guy. I'm not a general manager.
Well, put your GM hat on.
Yeah, if I put my GM hat on, and that means nothing, I want to tell you that. Here's the situation, and a lot of fans out there are saying, well, how come the Red Wings aren't making trades? How come there hasn't been a deal made? Well, I think one of the reasons why this year is what you guys brought up, and that's the expansion draft coming up. And I think there's only been 14 trades made at this point, maybe 15 now. I think Nashville made a trade, but general managers are waiting until the end of the season because what's going to happen is you're going to be able to protect 3 defensemen, let's say, right? Well, there's going to be a defenseman that you can't protect that you're going to lose probably for nothing in the expansion draft. So what these general managers want to do then is if you're going to lose a player for nothing, you might as well get something for him. So they're going to make a trade or make a deal. And I think that's going to happen around the entire National Hockey League. Just take, for instance, the Anaheim Ducks. I mean, they've got, 5, 6 defensemen there that, a lot of teams would like to have. I mean, they're going to protect guys like Vatanen and Fowler, but there's guys like Theodore and Manson there that, other teams would like to have. So general managers are willing to take a look at that and say, we don't want to lose those guys for nothing. We'll make a trade. So that's the reasoning behind why teams aren't making trades. They want to wait and see what's going to happen, with this expansion draft before they make a deal.
Now, I'm glad you touched on the expansion draft. With that coming up on June 21st, do you see this being a prime opportunity for the Red Wings to kind of make some moves, maybe remake themselves, not just on the salary cap end, but maybe just kind of give their team a facelift and make their roster a little bit better?
Well, you always want to improve your roster. And, what's hurting the Red Wings right now is that it's a cap issue. And so in order to go out into free agency, you're going to have to unload some contracts. And that's up to the general manager, to figure that out. Again, I'm no general manager, but again, if you want to get players that are going to help your team, I would imagine the Red Wings are looking for some type of puck-moving defenseman. Then you're going to have to find a team that's going to take, some of the players that you already have. I believe the Red Wings would like to get a couple puck-moving defensemen there on the blue line. So, when I look around the National Hockey League, I look at guys like Brian Campbell, who's still capable. He's a good scorer. He's a good skater, and, he still can play the game. You may have to overpay a little bit for him, but he's the type of guy that he's like a Mike Green type. He can skate the puck out. He can make the play to the forwards, get him the puck. He's a guy that could help this team. Another guy that could be available is Tyson Barrie. He's a, young defenseman out in Colorado that, I think has a huge upside, but you're going to have to give up something to get him. So there are players out there. You just have to, figure out a way of getting the things done.
Now, Ken, this is the last year for the Joe. Are you taking, extra time to kind of soak things in as the season progresses? Because I know everyone's getting a little bit excited about the new Little Caesars Arena that will debut next season.
Well, I'll tell you guys, I'm an old timer. I remember the Olympia, and I remember in high school going to games there, and I really liked the Olympia Stadium. It was a great place to watch a game. They put the Joe Louis Arena up in a hurry, and I remember when they first built this building, I was a little disappointed just because of the fact that I loved the Olympia. Now, with that said, fans here in Detroit over the last 35 years have fallen in love with the Joe Louis Arena just because of the fact that, it's a pretty intimate building for 20,000 fans. And also they've got some great memories here of winning, 2 Stanley Cups on home ice here, 4 overall, and all the great playoff games and the McCarty-Lemieux incident. And they've got so many great players that have donned the Red Wing uniform here. So there's a lot of memories for the fans, and I'm sure they're going to remember that. Now, with that said, I've enjoyed an opportunity to be able to call those great games and those great teams, but I'm really looking forward to the new arena because it's going to be like nothing else. I mean, the Little Caesars Arena is going to be a great venue for hockey. I mean, the sight lines are going to be terrific. The atmosphere is going to be great, and the whole district, Detroit, is going to be great too. So with that said, yes, I'm sad to see that, this is the final season at the Joe, but on the other hand, I'm really looking forward to the new arena. It's going to be great.
Ken Cal, play-by-play voice for the Detroit Red Wings. Now, when you came in here for the one-on-one podcast of several months back, we shared stories, talked about, the craft and things like that. And you had said to me that on very few occasions did you battle laryngitis, but I know a couple months back you dealt with it. How's the voice holding up?
Well, so far so good, and it seems like I always get it every year. It's probably because I talk too much, but it was a situation this year where I had a virus, did a game in Philadelphia, and really just blew out the vocal cords, and it just took some rest, and it lingered longer than I thought, and thank goodness for Bob Kaiser, who came in and did a great job, and I'm just happy to be back now, and the voice is at 100% now, so hopefully it won't happen again. But it's one of those situations where it seems like I always get something like this once a year, but hopefully it won't happen again for a long time.
Kenny, some of the best pipes in town. Take care of those. Get the rest that you need so you don't get laryngitis again, and take it easy, my friend. Thanks for the time. Wish we could sit here and talk hockey with you all afternoon long, but I know you're busy.
Well, always a pleasure, guys, and appreciate the hockey talk. Anytime, give me a call. We can talk about our Red Wings.
All right. Thanks, Ken. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Man, that was exciting. Always great. Fire up the telephone line, talk puck with Ken Cal, and always gracious and things like that. And I'm glad to hear that his pipes are holding up because, hey, man, it's a tough gig, and that's the most important part of the job is you can't lose your voice in order to do a play-by-play job, especially when you got to be on your feet going. And then his goal call probably takes a lot out of his voice. And if you always listen to the Doc and Jock podcast, Kenny Cal definitely contributed to our show, and we greatly appreciate it. So, you're a puck guy. It was nice to see the Wings play a little bit better in the last couple games. The renewed hope, this next 10-game stretch, everyone's talking about it. It's important because they do got to hurdle a lot of teams to get back into the top 3. Right now, they're not sitting too pretty, but they are kind of, you can see the contributions of Vanek. You can see with Caro, it's a little bit of new life and new blood, but that game versus Montreal was solid, and it's nice to see. But it just seems like right now, the number one thing the Red Wings are seeking is consistency, and I'm looking forward to see how they're going to play, in this next stretch of games because it's very important. And I know people poo-poo the playoff streak, but hey, anything can happen when you get into the postseason, and you can see that there is a collection of talent here, but it is one of those things where they got to get it going, and they got to get it going quick.
The one thing the Wings have going for them is, you're right, they're basically at the bottom in the cellar right now, looking up at everybody else, but everybody is bunched so closely together. If they can string a couple wins together, it's going to help this team out so much more, and I think they have a shot to come out ahead. The one good thing that I have seen from this team, and it's something very, very simple, it's just effort. The one good thing with this team is they have come out and they have competed their last few games. They look much hungrier, and they look like they actually want to go out there and compete and win. They're playing sound defensively, and that right there translates into some offensive scoring chances. That being said, I think a huge key for this team was getting a guy like a Justin Abdelkader back. You've seen it in the Pittsburgh game. He gets underneath everybody's skin. He sat there, he was able to draw a penalty on Crosby. Crosby had to go sit in the sin bin for a little bit. Crosby was out there sticking guys, checking them, slashing them, and anything, just because he was so frustrated. And that's a good sign if you got a guy like Abdelkader out there sitting there mucking up just a little bit. Look, Abdelkader, it'd be nice if he could score 20 goals a season. He's not that type of player. He's more of a grinder. He's going to go out there. He's going to get in your face. He's going to protect the guys. He's a little bit of an enforcer with some good hands. That's his job. He's going to go out there. If he can give you 15 to 17 goals a season, you take it. Hopefully he ends up with somewhere around 50 points. That would be great. On top of all that, he's going to go out there and he's going to body guys up. He's going to force turnovers when he's forechecking. He's going to come back defensively. He's going to help get that puck out of the zone up to forwards who can do something a little bit more with it. And it's been a good sign so far for this team. They just need to carry it on now, and they need to open up a nice winning streak here.
Now, Mr. Cal is very professional, but us, we can put our GM hats on all the time. That's what we do. So I'll ask you, put your GM hat on. When the guys come back, Kronwall and Smith, what's the deal? Who do you think are the best guys, and who should be kind of hitting the pine?
I'd bench both those guys. I would. Look, Kronwall for the last...
Oh, so because they come back to hit the bench.
That's what I would do. I would sit there, I'd play them in very limited opportunities. And that's just because Kronwall has lost a step or two. It's not just one step anymore. He's lost quite a few. He always looks like he's behind the play. He gets skated around by guys. He's almost a giant pylon with a Red Wing jersey on. That being said, Brendan Smith doesn't make the greatest decisions when he's out there. And if you're going to lose, we've said it before, I'm going to lose with the kids, right? Nick Jensen has come in. He's played very well. Xavier Ouellette looks good. I like what Ryan Spohl brings on the offensive side when he's got the puck high at the point. The guy's he's a shoot-first defenseman, which I like. He's going to get the puck to the net, and then from there, you just have to have guys winning battles down low, and that's when a guy like Justin Abdelkader comes in. So I like what the young kids are doing on the ice, and I just don't like what Nick Kronwall brings anymore. It's time. It's basically, we talk about it all the time. When it hits hard, and they fall off fast. And Kronwall has fallen off fast, and at this point, I feel like the Wings are just playing him because, he's one of the good guys. He's smart. He can still do it. We're hoping that he comes back from it. He hasn't come back from it. He hasn't been back to it in almost 2 years now. So why are you going to sit there and hurt this team? This team needs as many points as they can get to get back into the playoff chase and be in the playoff hunt when the season starts to wind down and wrap up. So play those guys very limited. And stick with the young cats. Let those guys play. I wouldn't run them into the ground. That's when you can sit there and rotate a Kronwall in. That's when you can rotate a Smith in. And if you're going to rotate those guys in, you don't have to play them on your first line. You don't have to play them on your second line. You do have 3 lines out there. Sit there and rotate those guys in then.
Thomas Vanek more valuable to the Wings, or should they use him as a trade bait piece to maybe improve the club ahead of his unrestricted free agency?
It really depends on where you're going to be at when the All-Star break rolls around. If you're competing for a playoff spot and Vanek is still scoring like he has been, you got to keep him. It would almost be silly to sit there and trade him away because you're in the playoff chase, and if you're sitting there making up ground on teams, he's a key cog to it. But if you're still on the outside, you're looking in, if you can get something of value for him, go ahead and trade him away. There's nothing that says that you can't trade him away, get something of value, and then go out and bring him back in the next year. You can do that. That's fine. You can even let him know. Be like, hey, look, we like what you've done. You're going to help this team out more if we can trade you away, get some pieces. We'd like to bring you back next season if that's an option that you'd be willing to discuss with us next season. And you can do that. Bring him back in next season because, look, he's made me look silly. Let's be honest about it. I sat there, I crushed this guy from the moment that they signed him. I didn't like them bringing him in, and he's played well. And this could just be one of those things where he's in an extended hot streak, and maybe he cools off the second half of the season. Going to kind of have to wait and see here. But he's made me look foolish, at least this first half of the season. He's done extremely well.
Man, I was as you were talking, I went to and I Googled 2017 NHL free agents. And to tie this into the Detroit Lions, you see that the Red Wings struggle, but what happens when you get a hot goaltender? Caro's come in there, been a little bit of a stabilizing force. I like his attitude, just calm, cool, has earned some shutouts. But when you look at the 2017 NHL free agents, and there are a couple goaltenders that are unrestricted, and there's one on here that I kind of has jumped out at me, and I say, hey, if you can position yourself, you can get rid of Howard, you can get rid of Caro, you can keep Mrazek as your backup. Go after Ben Bishop.
Ben Bishop. That's who I thought you were going to say.
No doubt. Ryan Miller's older, 36, got a $6 million cap hit this year. Ben Bishop, unrestricted, 30 years old. That's the guy that we've seen now in a couple playoff series. We did see in the playoff series a couple fluky goals, but all in all, he's a top goaltender. He's solid, and when he heats up, maybe you can patchwork it and maybe find the guy that will just carry you, even though you might not have the best roster, a la maybe find your Aaron Rodgers of goaltenders. Is that Ben Bishop?
See, the thing with Ben Bishop, I think he's a little bit of a pipe dream. I think he might be unprotected when the expansion draft takes place, and he might be picked up by Las Vegas. That being said, you've seen it this year, you've seen it last year, and you've seen it the year before. He always comes down with a random injury. Usually it's a groin injury, or it's a lower body injury is what they deem it. And that typically for a goaltender is a groin, and once you have a groin injury, it acts up and it wreaks havoc on you. You've seen it with Jimmy Howard here up close. Jimmy Howard a few years ago ended up getting that groin strain, and now every single year he always has to take some time off due to a groin injury. So Ben Bishop, yeah, it'd be great. It'd be outstanding if you can go out there, get him, and you can get him to a reasonable contract. But the guy has trouble staying healthy. On top of that, I think he might be unprotected because Tampa Bay's got a really good goalie kind of waiting in the wings there. And again, Tampa does really interesting things with their goaltenders. They're all like 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", and they're all just tall freaks of nature that are strapping on the pads, that are super flexible and super agile. So
let me go through his names. Anybody that we could look at: Ryan Miller, Ben Bishop, Jonathan Bernier, Steve Mason, Brian Elliott, Chad Johnson. Anybody just ring a bell? Anybody at all on that list make you go, well, maybe as a backup or anything at all?
TJ Oshie's going to be out there. That'd be a guy who I wouldn't mind them going out after and getting.
Is he a goalie? He's not even on the list.
No, he's not a goalie.
These are all goalies I listed off, bro.
Oh, you want goalies? You want to talk goalies? You want to talk actual players? Here's the thing, right? I'm willing to take a chance with going with the Jared Caro, Peter Mrazek combo. Caro has really stepped in and has played exceptionally well. Guy's played out of his mind. I'm willing to sit there and go with that combo. I'm even willing to sit there and go with the Jimmy Howard, Jared Caro effect because Peter Mrazek's been so up and down. They basically gave him the reins and he wasn't able to do it. I would sit there and I would focus my energy and my efforts on getting a guy like maybe a Brett Burns who plays defense. He looks like he basically climbed out of a cave with his beard. He kind of looks like a freak of nature, but the guy's solid. Go out there, get maybe a guy like a TJ Oshie who can score goals. He has great hands. There's a couple other guys, maybe a Kevin Shattenkirk. You can sit there and beef up your defense some more. He's a young player. You can add him. Goaltending-wise, I really don't want anybody that you named. Staying away from Ben Bishop. I don't know. You got enough here that you can do things with. So you can go out there. You can even get like an aging veteran, like a guy like a Patrick Sharp. He's won a couple cups with Chicago. He still has a little bit left in the tank. He can sit there and lock down your left wing position on your third line, maybe even your second line, depending on how much he still has left. So there are guys out there. It looks like a good free agent class. You need to save some money. That's the important thing about this upcoming expansion draft, because like Ken was kind of alluding to, you're only going to be able to protect so many guys. That means that there's going to be a lot of guys that are going to be taken off your roster by this team in Las Vegas. So that opens up some salary cap. That opens up some positions for your team. It's going to help make you a better team in the long run because There's a huge free agent class coming up. You can go out there once some of these pieces get picked over, and you can add some guys. So it's going to be real interesting to see what the 2018 Detroit Red Wings look like, especially when they go to open up that new building there.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely peek into the Red Wings a little bit more in upcoming episodes of the podcast, and you can definitely give me a list of all the free agents that we can look at, because the Wings are close, but it's just one of those things where they're not consistent enough. If everybody was firing on all cylinders, if Tatar, if Nyquist were firing on all cylinders, putting the puck in the net, if Larkin, who seems to have taken a step back this year, seems a little bit lost in his second year, he has the ability to make the highlight reel, but it's just not consistent enough this season. And a lot of people are just wondering, again, like the Tigers, should they just bottom out? Should they accept their fate and allow the team to rebuild? Because I do feel like a lot of people feel that the organization values this playoff streak way too much, and even at the detriment of the squad. And it seems the Red Wings have talent on paper, but they're not performing night in, night out. And each and every game is so important, because really in the East, it is tough, man. This transition to the East is probably tougher than even most people thought.
Do you think that the issue with the Red Wings is more just an effort, just bringing it every single night?
I think it's more talent.
You think it's more talent?
I think it's more talent.
Because watching the last couple games, it just seems like they want it more, And yeah, that might have something to do with talent, but sometimes you get put in a corner and you got nowhere to go but forward. You just kind of come out guns a-blazing, and I just feel like the last couple games, the effort level has been there, and that's kind of what separated them. And that's kind of how they've been able to sit there and win these games against opponents that, like you said, have a little bit more talent than them. I'm pretty sure it's kind of a combo deal between the two, but I just like to see the effort level. When they bring the effort level every single night, you're going to get bounces that are going to go your way. Pucks are going to go in the net. Things are going to take a crazy hop, maybe off your skate, off your stick, off your back, off your butt, and end up in the net. And in the end, that's going to help you out. You just got to bring the effort every single night. And I like what they've done the last couple games. If they can sit there and bring a high effort, sometimes effort wins over talent.
All right.
I've been on the other end of that many times. I've been the team that's brought the effort, and we've beat teams that we have no business beating in our league. So, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. We're probably the worst team in our division, right? We're playing in the highest level we can play in right now, and we shouldn't be there. We should be in the level below us. But you know what? We come out, we bring some effort, we skate a little bit harder. We definitely don't skate faster, and we don't have good passes like the other teams do. But sometimes you muck it up just a little bit, crazy bounces go your way, and you get a guy who's talented enough, they can sit there and put the puck in, and next thing you know, you're walking out with a W.
And to sum up the hockey talk, and I think this is the one thing that people are talking about, and you brought it up with Ken Cal, is the comments made by Ken Holland on TSN.
He's out of touch.
You also have to realize what the organization stands for. To hell or high water, Mr. Holland believes that, hey, we are not going to bring up people that play one-way hockey. And that's just how he's been. And whether it's to the detriment of the team or not, do you just disagree with that notion, or knowing that's the philosophy that Ken Holland and Jeff Blashill want? Is they want guys not just to come up here and to play halfway. They want complete players, and they may be forced to have younger guys play. But in essence, you're saying, you know what? Double-A, his performance, you also have to take into account that, hey, maybe Double-A is playing this well because of the fact that he's extra motivated to get on the ice. You got to remember that these young guys, what can you take away to punish them if they make a mistake? You can't have the players running the organization. You have to have management, and the management has a philosophy. Now, you can disagree with it, and I think many fans do, because their overall attitude is, hey, let's just bottom out, and if they make mistakes, let them learn at the NHL level. The Red Wings, as a proud franchise, they just don't want to do that. And I can accept that. And if that's their policy and they're going to roll with it and they universally apply it, I can roll with it. Now, me personally, I would say let them learn on the job in the NHL and bottom out. But if you're still holding on to a glimmer of hope, you're still trying to fight for the postseason, then you say, okay, no matter what, come hell or high water, if you come and you don the winged wheel, you got to play defense. And that's why I wanted to pick his brain and kind of see, is playing defense that hard? So it is an effort thing, and that's really important to instill that in a player. Hey, listen, we don't care about the results. You come here as a player, you play hard, you play on defense, and all fans of Red Wing hockey can remember, Steve Yzerman was probably this close, and I got my fingers real close together here, of being traded to Ottawa, and the number one reason was Scotty Bowman had the balls and the brass balls enough to come say, hey, you're a great player, but you're not the best player. And what did Stevie Y do? He bought in, and he became a superstar because he bought in and played defense. So, hey, if you got to bust your butt, that's how you get to wear the jersey and get ice time. Play more defense.
Here's the thing. I don't have a problem with that, if that's the case. If you're going to hold people to the same standard, that's fine. But what I find happens with this team, because a guy like Dylan Larkin, who the fans love and who I think the organization is holding up as their shining star, the games I watch, he gets lost all the time on the defensive end of the ice. He sits there, gets the puck, he does the same move where he skates around the net, takes a horrible angle shot that leads to no rebounds, leads to no other offensive opportunities. He doesn't back check enough. So if you're going to hold Athanasiou to this standard, and you're going to come out and you're going to say guys like Henrik Zetterberg have built up enough prestige with the Red Wings organization that they know that if he has a little bit of an off night, it's okay. He's not going to get benched because he's not back checking hard enough or he's getting lost on the defensive end of the ice. That a guy like Dylan Larkin, he doesn't have that buildup because he hasn't been here as long as a guy like Henrik Zetterberg, a guy like a Pavel Datsyuk was, or anybody else that you want to go ahead and name who's been here for centuries at this point because they're all old and decrepit. You can't come to me and you can't tell me a guy like Dylan Larkin has the same cachet as a Henrik Zetterberg, so when he's doing the same thing Athanasiou's doing, he doesn't deserve to get benched. And that's where I have a big problem with it. Because Athanasiou, right, Kenny said it himself, he does sometimes get lost out there, and sometimes it does look like he's taking some plays off, all right? And you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to show a consistent effort game in, game out. You know what, though? The captain takes nights off. The captain gets lost out there. And that being said, the guy who you're basically trying to build your franchise around, Dylan Larkin, he gets lost out there probably the most of all. And he takes awful angled shots that don't lead to anything else. So if you're going to hold one to a standard, you need to hold the other to a standard. And if you don't want to hold your captain to that same damn standard, I don't want to hear about it. Don't go talking about it to other radio stations. You keep that internal then. And that's my issue. And I just feel like Ken Holland at this point has lost all credibility with me because he doesn't have a guy like a Steve Yzerman to run things by. He doesn't have a guy like a Jim Nill to run things by. He doesn't have a Jimmy Devellano to sit there and run things by. He's doing everything by the seat of his pants because he feels the heat on his butt because he's sitting in the hot seat right now. And that's where I have a huge issue with what the Red Wings do. And it's why I have a huge issue with what Ken Holland comes out and says to Montreal radio stations, because he just sometimes doesn't have the cachet and he doesn't have the buildup. You know, that same buildup that he was talking about that Henrik Zetterberg has, where he can sit there and he can take nights off. You know what? Ken Holland's exhausted that. He needs to start making some more impactful moves to help this franchise and help this organization become better, because some of the things he's done lately aren't paying off.
Always nice talking puck with you. I know you're passionate. And now that the Lions season is over, we'll definitely peek into the Red Wings a little bit more. You definitely are pretty knowledgeable. And it was a nice interview. I enjoyed talking hockey with Ken Cal. And even though the Wings are struggling, there is a lot to talk about. And just taking a stroll down Woodward, I got to see the progress of the building. So nice, bro. 2 stadiums really close. Everything was right there. You got the Detroit Opera House right around the corner. That downtown area is going to be sweet. Just even on a nice spring day, just to walk down there and be like, man, Ford Field, Comerica Park, Little Caesars Arena, basically within 3 blocks of each other. It's a nice thing. It's awesome. And I hope that the Red Wings can put a product on the ice, because it's going to be expensive, but it will be worth it if the team can perform well and they can make the Little Caesars Arena rock as loud as the Joe Louis Arena did. Great talk. Always look forward to talk hockey with you. Stay with us. We'll end the podcast with a round of the Doctors in Session right up next. You're listening to the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Doc and Jock here for Fanatic U. If you're looking for some sweet sports swag and you love your Detroit teams, and I mean you really love your Detroit teams, you got to check out fanaticu.com and get the coolest gear out there and rock your Red Wings shirt, rock your Lions shirt, rock your Piston apparel. Wear it till the wheels fall off. Michigan State, you know what? They got it too. Check out Fanatic U. They have 6 locations all over Metro Detroit. Check them out, fanaticu.com.
Super fly.
All right, back at you, episode 180. For all you wrestling fans, you realized, you heard the news. Superfly passed away, age 73, got terminal stomach cancer a few months back.
Are we really doing a Jimmy Superfly intro here? You do realize he killed a woman, right? And got away with murder. Like, legit got away with murder.
I didn't pay attention to all that. All I care about with Jimmy Snuka is he climbed the cage and did a body slam. I didn't know all that. I didn't even bother to read any of that.
He killed his girlfriend.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, like
allegedly.
No, he like legitimately murdered her, and like there was a cover up. And then just recently, like on the 30th anniversary of her death, there were some journalists who like uncovered the evidence and sat there and brought it to everybody's attention. Like, The coroner's office was like, she was murdered. You need to do a better investigation, police force. And the police were like, don't worry about it. It's Jimmy Superfly. He's cool. Don't worry about that.
The last headline that I saw was that he got cleared.
Like, legit killed somebody. On top of it, his daughter, Tamina, is awful in the ring. She is brutal. Absolutely horrible. Like, the acorn does fall far from the tree. She is awful.
All you had to say was, rest in peace. He was a great wrestler. All that's extra.
No.
Now you got to actually read.
Facts, bro. Facts. Like, here's the deal. Was he great in the ring? Yes. Was he revolutionary when he was doing what he was doing? Yes. Did he have a great physique and did he look awesome when he was jumping off the cage and landing 10, 12 feet down below onto whoever was lying prone? Yes. Did he kill a woman who was his girlfriend like 30 years ago?
Allegedly.
Absolutely he did. And should it be brought up and should it be a little smudge on his resume? Absolutely it should. And did he get away with murder? Like legitimately get away with murder? Absolutely he did. These are all things that need to be brought up. And did he produce an awful, awful wrestler that the WWE feels the need to give time to in Tamina? Yes, they do.
All right.
I'm just saying, bro, if you're going to bring it up, you got to bring up all the facts. Just don't pick and choose what you want to talk about. Can't do it.
All I read was in the last headline, he was dismissed, so I never looked into it.
Here's the deal. Go to YouTube, type in Dave Meltzer, type in Jimmy Superfly Snuka, and listen to Dave break it down for you, because Dave will tell you all about it.
Joy. Just what I wanted. One of my boyhood heroes tarnished. Good job, bro.
I'm just saying, dude.
All right.
Just, it's all facts. You just got to look at them all. So you don't even know where to go from here, do you?
We're lucky we're doing the Doctors in Session because I can perk myself up with what you got for me. This is the Doctors in Session. I know you prepared, and I know you're ready to fire off some questions, and I'm ready to deliver. And what we call the Doctor is in Session.
But to be the man, you gotta beat the man. And I'm saying, woo, right here. I'm the man. Woo!
What are you going to tell me now? Ric Flair embezzles and steals and rips off old people?
No, he just he doesn't do a real good job with his money. That's for damn sure.
Exactly. So maybe he's holding on a little too long. But dude, if you can go viral in your 60s, that was awesome. That workout video.
You seen him? Yeah, you seen him deadlifting?
Dude, he's like, I'm never retiring.
That's
awesome.
Right.
That's a good Twitter page to follow.
He's trying to sit there and pump himself up for the Rumble, man. He might be in it. Probably not. Just saying. All right, so I want to see what's going on with the hamster inside your head. So I'm going to sit there and I'm going to poke, prod, and ask you a whole bunch of questions. And I figure we might as well start off with the Tigers. Justin Verlander was recently on MLB radio talking about how this season the Tigers will have a much better starting rotation due to this infusion of young talent taking a big step forward like they did last season. Do you believe him?
Very good segue here. Vito does a Tigers podcast each and every Wednesday on this fine network, the Tigers Talk podcast, and he tried to sell me some hope on the Detroit Tigers. Not too good because he's objective, and so next week on Wednesday, it's my turn to sell hope. So this will be the intro. In that, the Detroit Tigers obviously aren't making too many moves. All you're seeing across the wire is a bunch of minor league deals, a bunch of guys that they're hoping can maybe salvage their career. So it's Al Avila's job and the rest of the players to try and sell everybody that, hey, this is going to be a good team. So where do you start? Obviously, you start with the strength. And if Justin Verlander surveys the landscape, the strength of the Detroit Tigers in 2017, if there is to be one, will be that starting rotation. If everybody stays healthy, there is no probably better top to bottom 1 through 3 than Verlander, Jordan Zimmerman, Michael Fulmer. I do believe those three guys, if they take it upon themselves, can do some things. Now, do Boyd and Daniel Norris take the reins in the back and solidify 4 and 5? If they do, they're going to be given every chance. Then you have a rotation that can do some things, because if you look at the 2016 season, the starting pitching broke down, you had injuries, and the season was basically safe because you had Michael Fulmer emerge as potentially being a superstar. And if those guys can solidify this team, now you're looking at a potential Atlanta Braves situation where you can win some games 3-2, 3-1, and get above that 85 to 90 win hump. Right now, that's the strength of the team. That should be the focus, is how do we get these guys to stay healthy and to perform. And you're going to be looking at other guys that the organization is going to be looking to potentially emerge and continue to progress, like a Nick Castellanos, like a James McCann, Iglesias. If they can do more things on the offensive side, if they can strike out less, put more runs up, along with the superstar talent that's on this team, if Justin Upton plays 162 games, now you have a little bit of hope that this team can play into September and maybe do some things. But starts with the strength of the team. I do believe there's an opportunity that starting 5 could do some things this year.
Yeah, that, and if 29 other teams do the same exact thing, everybody's winning a World Series. That being said, how much better do you believe Fulmer, Norris, and Boyd will be this season? And do you see those three guys being a huge impact as the season wears on?
And I'm probably talking more to myself than anybody else. Early on, expect a little bit of struggles. I think Michael Fulmer now is going to see what it's like once there's film on you that the other teams are going to adjust, and now he's got to evolve, and he's going to be forced to evolve other pitches. Dude's got competitive stuff. I do believe early on, that first month, you might see him being around 500. And then once May, June hits, then I think that his full repertoire of stuff will emerge, and I think those guys will step it up. And I think that it just kind of is the case that the schedule for the Tigers to start the season is a little bit challenging, so there's going to be bumps along the way, but I fully expect that the Tigers are going to be in gear by May and June, and I think Michael Fulmer is going to be expected to get around 17 to 20 wins would be a realistic expectation, and I think 85% of the way he gets there.
Do you see Fulmer being the number 2 behind Verlander?
No, absolutely not.
You see him being the 3?
I think that it's safe in your second year that you go Zimmerman, Verlander, Michael Fulmer. That way you don't have to go up against the opponent's number 2. You get a chance potentially in the lineup as it shakes out, that you face lesser competition, which also gives you confidence, hey, when you go out there and the Tigers face a lesser pitcher, that maybe they can do some things and he can go out there and get some wins. And I think right now, no higher than number 3, barring any injuries. Number 3.
So that being said, Brad Ausmus will have him be your number 2, and will burn him out before half the season's even over, because you know how Ausmus does it. All right, let's transition to your Detroit Pistons. All right, how do you feel about Tom Gores coming out and saying that re-signing KCP is a top priority? This is something you and I touched on early in the season, but I think probably right before the first game of the year, and there were some conversations that KCP might be a $20 million player. So where are you at with this now? Because I know that you were totally opposed to it. Yes, that's right. That's right.
This is bad.
That's where you were at with
all negative. But you look at the collective bargaining agreement. That's why you see all these one-year deals. The players are lining up looking to say, oh boy, big money's coming. All you have to look at and see is a guy like KCP is going to command $20 million per. And look, all you got to say is he worth it? No, of course not. Is he going to get it? Yes, and here's why. When you saw that when he was hurt, what happened to the Pistons? Their defense went to shit, and they're still trying to figure it out how to come back from it. He's your best on-the-ball defender. He's a guy that can lock down the opponent's best scorer, and he's a guy that can shoot threes. The problem is, I need you to do it night in, night out, every single night. Look at what Paul George does. Now, you could argue whether he can bring it and can be a superstar in the pressure situations, but Paul George is still better than KCP, and I cannot wrap my mind around 2 guys on your team, Andre Drummond and KCP, commanding over $40 million a year in salary. That doesn't make any sense to me. No, the biggest thing that Tom Gores should say is, I need a team that's going to be in the postseason. I need to put asses in the seats. KCP shows up at home, it's nice, but on the road, sometimes he's inconsistent. There are some nights he doesn't show up. And again, I'm hesitant to buy into three-point shooting teams. I've said it early last year, and I'll say it again. And I look at now going to Oakland games, shooting the 3 is unbelievably hard. It's not easy. I'm more of a guy, get me a strong power forward, get me a guy that can hit the mid-range shot consistently, and that's his game. I don't want a guy that's a three-point specialist. I just want a guy that can shoot the ball night in, night out, can create his own shot, and can lead this team. And so, does KCP embody all that? He's inching towards it, but right now, is he there? And you're forcing me to cut the check? I say, no way, trade him. Get something for him. I think that you could build through the draft or find other talent. And see, that's why right now, and that's, something that I'm kind of proud of, is that we did the state of the Detroit teams months ago. People are doing it now, but we said that all these teams are mediocre because they're right in the middle. They're all around 500. They're all have some talented players. But what needs to happen is one of these organizations has to figure it out and go, you know what? We have an asset. Let's just trade it off and get a couple more assets and build a team that can win. Right now, the Pistons are under 500. Stan Van is even befuddled when he's asked, why doesn't your team play defense? He's like, I don't know. And you're going out there, and Tom Gores says, my number one priority is KCP. Come on, man. The number one priority should be one word. Superstar should be his one word. You can't find it. The Pistons can't find a superstar. It's like they're anti-superstar. I just think they need one guy that not a Carmelo Anthony, a true superstar, to come in here and say, give me the rock. It's in my hands. Buckets going in. 2 points. Boom.
So you brought up Paul George. Paul George, average salary is $18.3 million a season. All right, so that being said, factor in inflation. So $20 million is right around where he probably will be making, he being KCP. If you could get KCP for $19 million a year, would you sign him?
Yeah, less than 20. I would say the
So 20 is the backbreaker for you.
No, I would say the best option is to move him along and get some draft picks and some talent because he's a tradable commodity, and I think that you should build around Andre Drummond, build his offensive game because that's easy buckets. Dunks, easy bunnies, shots from 5 to 10 feet are easy. And Oakland University is a perfect example. They're a team that tries their absolute best to shoot threes, and when they get hot, they work. But sometimes they go ice cold. And in the NBA, teams,
and when they do, they lose to U of D.
Exactly. And same thing with the Pistons, dude. There was a game, I believe, out west, and I was live tweeting it, and I was watching, and I was like, here we go. Jacked up a three, missed. Jacked up a three, missed. Every time they jacked up a three, it was missed. Every time they went inside, Marcus Morris, Reggie Jackson, Andre, easy buckets. And yet they continue to jack up threes. And I think my tweet was, directly, I said, SVG should just say, listen, the next guy that shoots a three, fine $10,000. The philosophy should be simple. No threes. Try your absolute best to go one game without shooting threes. See how you do. And it's just one of those things where the Pistons try. They're not a three-point shooting team. They cannot efficiently do it. That's just it. They want to be, and I understand that's the premise of SVGs, and that's what Golden State can do, but you can't do it. You can't execute it. So go out there and find a guy that can, and it ain't any of these guys.
Another team that likes to shoot a lot of threes and it hurts them, University of Michigan does the same exact thing. I was watching
I hate it.
The Wisconsin game the other night.
They got hosed.
Yeah, well, they started to play a little bit. They came out. They ended up taking the lead. I think it was like with 7 minutes left in the game, and then next thing you know, they're just hitting or clanking off the rim, and they can't win the game. And I was like, you know what? They ended up going down by I think like 8 points. I was like, it's over. I just shut it off because that's how Beeline coaches. That's kind of how Stan Van Gundy does some things. I agree with you. You need to work on an inside-out presence. If you can sit there, get the ball into Drummond, and if it's not falling for Drummond, let Drummond feed it to him inside. Let him kick it back out. Easy buckets.
I agree. Outside of basketball reasons, because yeah, you need talented players, but you really going to put posters of KCP and Andre Drummond in your new arena? No, you're going to go downtown and try to do a going to work team? No, you got to find a marketable piece. At this point in time, you're very close, and I don't know if there's too many outlets even talking about basketball right now. Outside of us and a couple other podcasts, nobody talks about basketball because there's no juice, there's no life.
Not fun right now.
Has KCP said anything to anybody? I might just go ask to see if he actually can talk. Did they say anything? It's just right now the Pistons are a team that lacks real creativity and personality. I mean, literally, a 7-foot giant Boban is the talk of the country and the talk of our Twitter page because anytime I throw his name out with the GIF, our Twitter page blows up. I don't even know anything about the guy. I just do it to, have some conversation with people because that's what they love. They love Boban. That's not what you need. You don't need sideshows as your, staple of your organization.
You know who else loves him? Michelle Beadle. And you know who I'd love to see naked? Michelle Beadle. All right. Moving on to a fun basketball team. So your Warriors and your Cavaliers, they played the other night. So do you have a bigger issue with Draymond Green basically annihilating LeBron, or LeBron looking like he took sniper fire from the rafters in Monday night's matchup?
All in all, both don't come out looking too great, but what I loved was Draymond, after the fact, kind of walks towards the Golden State supporters and does the whole flop thing to get some support. Draymond Green hasn't learned, and it's one of those situations where what they're doing is jockeying for position. And Draymond Green is not going to back down to nobody. He doesn't even care. At this point in time, it is what it is. This is our turf. You're going to come in here. You're going to get laid out. Now, did LeBron James embellish it? Yeah. Should he have? Yeah, because what happens? Draymond Green gets a flagrant one. And
he sold that like he was trying to win an Oscar, bro.
That was awesome. That's what you got to do.
God, it's awful.
Hey, within the confines of the court,
you look like Nancy Kerrigan getting clubbed.
You do what you got to do to win the game. And does it look good in style points? No. Does it make you look soft on, podcasts and sports talk radio? You're going to get killed and embarrassed. But did you get the flagrant one on Draymond Green? Yeah. Did you put in the ref's mind, hey, this is a troublemaker in case there is a matchup in the NBA Finals? Yeah. And remember what happened last year. Golden State was on their way to destroy Cleveland. All of a sudden, their MVP, Draymond Green, Kickapalooza, keeps kicking guys in the nuts. He gets out, he gets suspended, and it changed the whole complexion of the series. Cleveland wins it because single-handedly Draymond Green was not available. And he has to learn there's got to be a much better way to send a message than to be, if you want to do it during a regular season game, I guess you can try it, but Draymond Green is trying to send a message, hey, we're not punks out here. And the Golden State Warriors went out there and destroyed the Cavaliers, so it was awesome.
All right, building on that, what you just said, how Draymond basically cost the Warriors the series. Will Draymond Green cost the Warriors a game, a series, or a championship again this year by taking a stupid, silly foul?
It's a tough one because it's going to be a competitive series. I think everybody is kind of waiting and is kind of resigned to the fact that it's going to be Golden State and the Cleveland Cavaliers, and everybody's going to be super thrilled to see how it goes. I do believe Draymond at this point in time should learn that, in order to help your team win, you got to be on the floor. So you got to find that balance of playing strong defense. He will get technicals. I don't believe, though, that throughout the course of the playoffs, he will amass that many technicals, so it'll be a problem. Maybe he'll take one hard foul. Maybe he'll cost you a turnover and some points here and there. But in terms of what's going to happen this year, Draymond will actually help his team by being on the floor. And this year, I believe, it'll swing back to the West, and Golden State will take it down.
You want a bonus question?
Oh, always.
Josh McDaniels basically comes out and says he does not want the San Francisco 49er head coaching job.
See the report today?
Yes, that being said, ESPN is reporting that Josh McDaniels is eyeing the Detroit head coaching position for the 2018 season. So what are your thoughts on bringing in the Pats offensive coordinator as the future head coach of the Detroit Lions?
If ever there was an opportunity to talk to somebody off the record, I'd love to talk to Jim Caldwell. Dude's taking my job. Dude's out here trying to kind of swindle his way and kind of throw it out there.
He's already pining for it a year before.
And so
the season hasn't even got underway for 2017.
On the flip side, I kind of like it too, because Bob Quinn can kind of sit back and go, hey, I'm the boss. I can kind of pull the puppet strings. And Jim Caldwell, hey, show me what you got, because, hey, there's somebody out there, maybe two people that I already know are in my back pocket that I can just, boom, shoot out a text to. They'll be on a plane within 3 hours, and they got your job. So it's one of those things. I like it. It's just I wish it wasn't Josh McDaniels, because when he was a former head coach, he didn't really do all that much. And I do believe that, his destiny is to be a solid offensive coordinator. I don't think that he's going to come in here and recreate the magic of Bill Belichick. Now, he's got that in him. He's been taught. He's seen what's going on. But, I don't know if a marriage between Bob Quinn and Josh McDaniels is going to be the thing that's needed to put us over the hump. But in terms of the report, I like it. I like the fact that Jim Caldwell is not going to be extended. I'm kind of feeling like Bob Quinn saying, hey, I haven't extended him. He's got to go out there and just honor his contract, and it'll be playoffs or bust. And if Jim Caldwell can get the playoff victory, then, hey, he'll probably get and earn an extension. But for me, I'm just one of those people that just kind of wishes there was somebody out there that was, well-respected, has Super Bowl rings, is the guy that we can just go out there and pluck. That's all the Lions need, is just finally the guy. The Red Wings waited and waited. They went through Demirs. They went through all these coaches, and then all of a sudden, boom, the guy showed up. The Pistons went through all these guys, got their gatekeeper in Rick Carlisle. Then they got the guy, Larry Brown. Boom, that's what happens. The Tigers were mired in mediocrity. They went through Buddy Bell. They went through the, crumb bums of the week. And then they got the guy, Jim Leland. You had success. There's no guy for the Lions to go out and get. So they went out and thought they got their guy, and that's Jim Caldwell, but he's just a stopgap. He's the guy that's going to get you to that next level. Where is that guy? It's just right now, you're looking at the next guy that's going to coach after Caldwell is going to be the hot assistant. And I don't want that. I want the guy that's going to come out here with respect, and that is once he shows up here, the train's moving toward a championship. There's no guy there. There's no guy.
All right, so if I held a grapefruit spoon to your eyeball, and basically I forced you to pick between these guys, all right, otherwise you end up coming out looking like, who's the guy in The Walking Dead? Megan or
Negan?
Yeah, whatever, the guy who wears an eye patch in The Walking Dead, all right? So you've got to pick. So you've got Josh McDaniels, you've got Matt Patricia, all right, those are New England coordinators. You got Kyle Shanahan.
Great. Nice options.
Hold on. Wait. Tom Cable, former Raiders head coach, and now he's working with Seattle. Or you get to stay in-house with Jim Bob Cooter. So you get Coots, or you get Terrell Austin.
Look, you can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious!
Oh, right. So now, I wish everybody could see your face right now.
That's horrible.
Because it looks like you just threw up in your mouth.
Dude, there's nobody. I don't want any of those guys.
You got to pick, though. You got to pick, otherwise you're losing an eye, and you get to stay with Jim Caldwell.
I would go Terrell Austin then. I just go focus on defense and go with a guy that, with some talent produced you the number 2 defense in the NFL. That's probably and that's with like a 40% approval rating from me. So it's just, that's it. There's no guy. That's why we're mired in mediocrity, because, look at the 4 teams that are left. All of them have better coaches than the Detroit Lions. Look at Atlanta. They pluck from the world champion. What do we ask for? Go out there and pluck from a champion. What do we ask for? Go out there and get a Green Bay coach. Go out there and get an Atlanta coach. And go out there and get a New England coach. But if that's the option, the best working relationship would naturally probably be with someone from New England, because Bob Quinn knows what's going to happen, and it'll just be seamless. and that's just one of those things. But at this point in time, the Lions are going with the status quo. Keep Stafford, keep Caldwell, and let's see what happens. But all we're doing is just we could basically in the next 3 weeks we can record what's going to happen next season. It's going to be up and down. There's going to be some coaching issues. They're going to be right on the cusp of the postseason. They won't make it. They're going to fire Jim Caldwell. Actually, record this because I'll note this. It's Today is January 18th, 2017. This is what's going to happen next January 17th, 2018. We're going to have a press conference regarding who the next head coach is. Stafford's going to be celebrating a massive contract, and they're going to be looking at a season where they don't make the postseason, and they're going to be starting anew, and we're going to still be talking about, can Matthew Stafford emerge? Can the Detroit Lions win with Matthew Stafford? We're going to have the same storylines, but with a new head coach in the next year. It won't be a postseason. It'll be a 7-9 win season. We'll rant and rave about, the debate between is Stafford good or not, and we'll rant and rave about the debate between Jim Caldwell, and we'll talk about how Bob Quinn's doing in his 2 years, and then in the end, we're going to have a new regime. That's what's going to happen in the next year. It's going to be predetermined. There's no other way. Or what I told Jason was something out of the ordinary happens. We go 14-2 and we lose first round at home. Because that's the next progression in the Lions lore, is to have an outstanding state-of-the-art season and a Dallas Cowboy collapse. That's the next chapter in the Lions lore in terms of what the punishment that we endure.
All right, so I got it down. January 18, 2018, Matt Stafford gets a huge contract, and we'll be having a presser for a brand new head coach. That being said, I'd look at either Tom Cable, Matt Patricia, or even Kyle Shanahan. I know Kyle Shanahan's comes from the long lore of Shanahan's, and they seem to screw everything up the more and more they fondle with things. But he has, every place he's gone, he's pretty much succeeded as an offensive coordinator. So I don't know if you can't say the same if you do the same as a head coach. So I don't know. So hey, that's all I got for you for Doxson session. And great job. Again, you show why you are the man and why nobody can beat you because you're the man. So great job there, Doc.
By the time we come back, there'll be a new president and a whole new country.
Oh, boy.
We'll see what happens. Everybody out there, stay calm. It's going to be okay.
Doesn't implode first.
We'll see what happens. But everything you need to know is whoever the president is, whoever's running the city of Warren, you know that you can listen to Doc and Jock every Thursday on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski. Want to run for mayor of Warren?
I might. I'd probably win.
I'm the Doc, John Macaroon. Thank you so much. Episode 180, done.
Go Wings. Go Pistons.
This was locker room talk.
Second deck.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I have voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me.